US and NATO responses fail to address Russia's main concerns, says Foreign Minister Lavrov. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said NATO support for Ukraine constitutes a growing threat on its western flank. Moscow CNN. The written responses presented by the United States and NATO to Russia's security demands fail to address Moscow's main concerns over the eastward expansion of the military alliance. Russia's foreign minister said Thursday as fears of the possible invasion of Ukraine remain high. There is no positive reaction on the main issue in this document, Sergei Lavrov told journalists in Moscow. The main issue is our clear position on the inadmissibility of further expansion of NATO to the east and the deployment of strike weapons that could threaten the territory of the Russian Federation. Tensions between Moscow and Kiev are at their highest in years, with a large Russian troop buildup near the shared borders of the two former Soviet republics. Russia has repeatedly denied it is planning an invasion, but has argued that NATO support for Ukraine, including increased weapons supplies and military training, constitutes a growing threat on its western flank. Lavrov explained the US and NATO had previously agreed within the context of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, called OSCE, not expansion to the expense of Russia's safety. We present non-verbal promises, a written document signed by the leaders of all the OSCE countries, including the President of the United States. Istanbul Declaration of 1999, Astana Declaration of 2010. Our Western partners have to get out from a more serious situation, Lavrov explained. This principle is clearly stated. It has two main interrelated approaches. First, the right of every state to freely choose military alliances is recognized. Second, the obligation of each state not to strengthen its security at the expense of the security of others. In other words, the right to choose alliances is clearly conditioned by the need to take into account the security interest of any other OSCE state, including the Russian Federation, Lavrov concluded. The Russian foreign minister conceded the responses by the US and NATO could lead to serious discussions, but only on secondary issues. There is a reaction there that allows us to count on the beginning of a serious conversation, but on secondary topics, he said. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov echoed the same concerns on Thursday, saying on the surface, Russia's prime concerns had not been addressed. He, however, refused to give an official definitive answer to the responses presented by the US and NATO. Peskov told journalists during a conference call that Vladimir Putin had read the written responses from both the US and NATO, but added that Russia's president and his government won't be rushing into any conclusions. The president already read the written responses, he said. All the papers are with the president. It will take some time to analyze them. We will not rush to any conclusions. Russia's official response will not take long, but Peskov cautioned it wouldn't happen straight away. NATO sees room for progress. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Wednesday the U.S. written response to Russia set out a serious diplomatic path forward should Russia choose it. The U.S. has repeatedly said Putin's central demand that the U.S. and NATO commit to never admitting Ukraine to the alliance is non-negotiable. Blinken declines to detail specifics presented to Moscow in the written response, but reiterated the West's public response to uphold NATO's open door policy, rejecting Moscow's demands that NATO commit to never admitting Ukraine. There is no change. There will be no change, Blinken said of US and NATO support for the alliance's open door policy. We make clear that there are core principles that we are committed to uphold and defend, including Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and the right of states to choose their own security arrangement and their alliances. He added. NATO Jens Stoltenberg said Wednesday that the alliance's written response was sent in parallel with the United States. Although the positions of Moscow and the alliance are far apart, the NATO trip outlined three main areas where NATO sees room for progress. He asked that Moscow and NATO reopen their respective offices in Moscow and in Brussels. It's unclear whether the latest diplomatic overture, which Moscow had sought, will change the course of talks between Russia and the West that had continued over the past several weeks. CNN's Yulia Savchenko, Jennifer Deaton, Kara Fox, Radina Gigova, Jeremy Herb, Jennifer Hansela, and Kylie Atwood contributed to this report.